Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. And welcome to today's installment of Ask Islam. The title of today's panel is Rooted in Faith, Ready for the World, Building a Muslim Confidence in the West. Growing up as a Muslim in Western societies today presents a unique set of challenges. On one side, young Muslims face hyper secularism, media scrutiny, and cultural pressures to blend in. On the other side, there is often an internal crisis, confusion over religious doctrine, apologetic attitudes, or an over reliance on rigid cultural customs rather than pure spiritual convictions. Today, we want to explore how the Ahmadiyya Muslim community plays a pivotal role in resolving this tension, helping Muslims in the West not just survive, but thrive by standing tall in their faith. Dear viewers, Ask Islam brings you these discussions so you can be a part of our regular programs. We encourage you to take part actively by sending us your questions live. You can do so in the chat box on the platforms you are viewing us today. And we will be happily taking your questions as a part of our program today and all programs in the future. So don't forget to ask your questions. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on our different social media platforms at Ask Islam. Joined with me today are two esteemed panelists. We have respected Zahid Abid Sahib and Musleh Shambur Sahib. Welcome and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to you both.
Walaikum salam wa
Walaikum
rahmatullah.
salam.
So let's dive into the discussion today. And Musleh Sahib, I'll start with you. The question I want to pose is that when we speak about building confidence, what is the actual state of Muslim identity in the West today? Why are so many young Muslims struggling with an inferiority complex?
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, I think we should look at the root cause of this problem that we're facing nowadays in the West, specifically with Muslims. And this starts as, of course, we are going to speak about this from a religious perspective, but we cannot really deny that this has a lot to do with psychology, with emotions, with feelings, and so on and so forth. Because if we try to go deeper in the root cause of this problem, we would see that first of all, the West is trying to impose superiority over those migrants or immigrants who come to I wouldn't say even their countries, but to the Western countries. And those Muslims and even non-Muslims, let's speak in general first, people from different ethnicities, people from different nations, different countries, who end up having to come here for some reasons, they feel the inferiority complex within themselves due to watching others excelling, due to not being confident in their own teachings, in their own culture, in their own religion. If they do not have the right knowledge about their religion, I mean, of course, if they consider themselves in the right path, in the right religion, they should not have this feeling. But if they consider themselves yet they do not have the right knowledge, the parents are not teaching them from a young age, they will feel shy to say I am a Muslim. When they meet their other colleagues, other students, if they are young, or other co-workers at work, and sometimes they discuss some topics and they do not have the knowledge, they do not know how to answer, they never heard of the Islamic perspective on some matters, they will feel the inferiority within themselves. They would not want to say that we are Muslims. They would not want to participate in those conversations. For example, if they speak about transgenders, if they speak about homosexuality, if they speak about various things that people in the West look at Islam as extremism, they would not want to answer. They would feel it. And then the other thing is that when they come here to the West, because there are various aspects. If you take one aspect is the language, when you see that you are unable to speak the same way, even if you know the language, you have some accent that will cause also some sort of inferiority. If you have, like for example, if you take the marriage issue, they look at Islam as arranged marriages is always failing. Whereas if you go deeper into these issues, you would see the other way around. If you study Islam, if you study the perspective of Islam, the causes, the results, the solutions it presents through having these issues, you will see that they are not being successful. For example, if they look at the West, they have this understanding that first you have to have girlfriends and then you're able to actually get married. And then when such discussions arise among youth that we want to, this is how in Islam they get married, and you have a Muslim person sitting among them hearing this, and he doesn't know how to address this, he has no knowledge about this, he wouldn't want to participate in the conversation, whereas he should be taking over the conversation if he has the right knowledge about Islam. So we have to actually look at where it stems from. We have to look at where the root cause comes from. It's basically the knowledge. This is why the promised Messiah ﷺ said that reading creates bravery, and bravery brings the confidence. That confidence is what we lack. This is what we lack in order for us to feel confident among other people and feel that we are strong enough, we are Muslims, we're proud of our Islam. Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu, once when he went to visit the UK, and he was walking, I think we probably mentioned this in the past, but in this topic, it relates to this topic, that he was walking outside in the morning. I think he was doing his morning walk, and he was wearing the normal Pakistani or Indian shalwar kameez, and one of his companions who was walking with him, he told him, people in the West feel offended when they see you wearing this because they wear similar clothes but for as a pajama. It's not really for outside. So it's better maybe if you wear something different. And Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu did not like his question or his comment. And he told him that is not right. He said, do we impose our culture on them when they come to India? I am proud of who I am. I'm going to stay the way I am. So now this Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu also explained it in a different manner, in a different perspective. He said that imagine that the teachings of Islam, or Islam, is just like a building, and there are many buildings that have been built to confront Islam, to destroy this building, and that is the cultural superiority that they're trying to impose on Islam, to project on our teachings and present it as if they have the better ones. They have the peaceful life. This is exactly what Dajjal means. Dajjal means in Hadith, it's mentioning, it will show you a sweet water, but in reality it's not sweet water. This is how they're trying to show us that, for example, this is how you get married, this is how you have life, this is how you enjoy life, this is how you do business, this is how you do fraudulent things, so on and so forth, and you will be peaceful. This is what they're trying to project in us, and we will fall into this if we are away from God. If we are later on, inshallah, we'll present some solutions that our khulafa have presented in the past. If they are away from God, if they have no knowledge about Islam, if they are not confident in their own religion.
Jazakallah, Mr. Sahib. So Zahid Sahib, I want to move and I want to take one step back. I want to ask you that, is Islam a unique religion just for the eastern parts of the world, the Arabia, Asia, maybe Africa? And if not, that's obviously what we do believe, that Islam is for the whole world. How can Islam make the society in the West more beautiful? Because there's a lot of beautiful things that we do have in the West. We're not trying to negate or say that the West is full of a lot of negativity, but how can Islam make the West even more beautiful than maybe some of the beauties that exist in this society?
Right. So, as you have rightly said, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, that Islam is a universal religion. It has very clearly said that it is not limited to one part of the land or for one segment of society. It is for all of for the whole of the world. Keeping that in mind, so some might say that, look, we come from broken countries, broken economies, a third world country or developing country, whatever you want to call it. And what do we have to offer to a country that is thriving, a first world nation, where our own people raise this question. Our kids think along those lines as well. That look, there's justice, there is no corruption, or there is a lack of corruption. At least on the surface, it seems everything is done in due processes, and nobody's rights are trampled over, and so on and so forth. So, what does Ahmadiyya Jamaat or what does Islam has to offer to such a society that is already, you know, enjoying life, enjoying freedoms and all those things? But when you look at what is the purpose of Islam, then you come to realization that if the purpose of Islam is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, that service to Allah and the creation, you will find that the first principle is totally missing from the society. This is the very fundamental aspect, bringing people closer to God. And this is something that the society is completely oblivious of. Now, if that is the spiritual aspect, right? Then, in terms of worldly success and progress, what can Islam offer them? We find that one of the greatest challenges why our economy, or every 10 years or 25 years, there's a cycle of inflation, then recession, and then you can call it progress, and then back to inflation and recession or whatever these terms are. It's a cycle, and these cycles are built into the system. And who derives the benefit from these cycles? It is not the common man. It is those who have the money, those who already possess the wealth. So Islam proposes a system which is not based upon interest, and this cycle is based on interest. So eventually, the interest rises so high that people default, corporations default, and then the bigger corporations buy such businesses and corporations and those homes and all those kind of things. And this is the cycle that they create, where the wealth then filters into fewer and fewer hands over time. But Islam is counter to that. Islam proposes a system based on no interest. Then another problem in the society, or that they themselves admit that it is a problem, and that is the problem of alcoholism. The consumption of alcohol uh, creates not only marital problems, it causes a number of incidents on the roads leading to death, to destruction of property, and then other problems which then derive from, uh, for example, if the mother who's expecting, and then if she cannot leave alcohol and she drinks during that pregnancy, it causes long-term ill effects for the child that will be born. So these are the societal things, the two things that you can see from the, if you're just looking like bird's eye view, you're looking at overall picture, you see that these are two fundamental problems that exist in these Western countries, and they cannot provide uh, a system without stepping away from these things. They have to step away from it to find a solution, and Islam provides a solution that if you leave alcohol, you will see an overall betterment in the society. One of the reasons they present that we have alcohol is because, look, people pay so much taxes when they buy these things, or the company is paying so much taxes. But on the other side, they do not see the harm in terms of the health it causes. And then the counter effect on the healthcare system, where the alcohol destroys somebody's life, mental health issues, obesity, causing overweight, all these kind of issues, heart failures, kidney failure, all these things, they are linked in part to the consumption of alcohol. So one is the spiritual aspect that Islam offers to these countries, to these societies. The other is the betterment in the society. If you're looking at financial systems, Islam provides a better system. that can alleviate the challenges that the society is facing today. If you want to read more, the New World Order has Muslim Maud has presented these arguments in favor of the Islamic financial systems. And yes, Muslim, if you want to add
I
something.
wanted to add something because especially you mentioned a very good point in the beginning that Islam is a universal religion. This is actually what the Quran teaches us. Like, the Holy Quran tells us that أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. Those who listen to all sorts of conversations, all sorts of new talks, and they follow the best of it. Likewise, the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said something similar. He said to us that al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min, that wisdom is the last item of every believer. Wherever he finds it, he takes it. So when we come, we do say that Islam embraces other cultures. It also does not impose any nation's culture on people and saying that this is what Islam is. Islam embraces all cultures. So when we say al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min, when we come to a new country, to a new nation, to a new civilization, and we see some good things in that, we adopt it. We also say that this is part of the teachings of Islam. The reason why is because we say that Islam follows nature. Islam is the teaching of that actually aligns with the nature of human beings. You cannot find a teaching in Islam that goes against the nature that God created us with. For example, if you say, like Murabbi Sahib was speaking about alcohol, because God knows that will not align with what your natural life requires. This is why God told us not to drink. You would see some teachings, you may think that this is not according to the nature of human beings, but if you study deeply, like previously we have discussed the inheritance. You may hear that a man should take twice of what a woman should take. But if you actually go in depth, studying this subject, you will see that this is actually what brings peace into your life. For example, we spoke about this previously as well. If we study the inheritance in Islam, we say that, let's say a father passed away, he has a son and two daughters, and he left for them $100,000. The son will get $50,000. The two daughters will get each one $25,000. On the surface, you may think that this is not just. How is this following the nature of human beings? But if you study in depth, Islam says that the son is compelled to use this $50,000 on his family. If he's not married, he has to establish his marriage life in the future. If he's married, he's compelled to use it for his family. Whereas the daughters, they got the $25,000 to their pocket. They are not even required to spend a penny on their house unless they want to willingly. If they're not married, they can also save it. And when they're married, they're not compelled to spend anything. And this is within the nature of mankind. God gave the man the power to do this, to handle all expenses of the house. And he gave the woman other capabilities that man cannot handle. There are so many things that female can do and men cannot do. And there are many things as well that men can do and women cannot do. When we try to mix those together, like in the West, many people here in the West, not all of them, but many, say that everything is equal. So let's say that job-wise, expenses-wise, everything is equal. And they go about living their life based on this. And what ends up happening is, like let's say that a family chooses that the husband will pay half expenses, wife half expenses. No one's looking after the kids, number one. Number two, the female will end up having some sort of depressions. Why? Because they are unable to handle it. It's not within their nature. The man should handle that. The woman should never, in Islam, the woman should never worry about any of her own expenses if she's married. Even if she's in her parents' house, she should not be worried about having, for example, a phone. That how am I gonna pay my phone bill? How am I gonna pay the utilities? How am I gonna pay for my monthly car payment or whatever there is? That God said that this is for the man to handle. Go break your head, you do it. Let her handle other things. And if you go against this and you try to find ways beyond this or aside of this, you will see that you will not live a peaceful life. This is why Islam is a universal religion. It does embrace other cultures. At the same time, it presents, as Murabbi Sahib said, the solution for the human natures.
Right. I just wanted to, Muslim bhai, add here that this does not mean that Islam prohibits women from studying or pursuing a career that is beneficial to mankind. There are many doctors and professors and teachers, but it does not come at the cost of family, right? This is the balance that Huzur has also talked about. That though there is no restriction, but Allah has defined certain roles in Islam for each gender, and those who try to break this barrier and try to, men trying to become women and women trying to become men or taking on the opposite gender's roles, it will not work because they are not built for that sort of lifestyle. So, as you said, on as a running the family, making sure the family is provided for, that is the man's responsibility. Though a woman or a woman can pursue a career, but this should not be contingent that because of that earning, she will now become the breadwinner of the house. So I think these are the two things that sometimes people get mixed up.
Jazakallah, this was, sorry, Tahir Sahib, with your permission, this was an important clarification to make, and I'll add to it a hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. He did say that طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة, that seeking knowledge is compulsory for every male and female. So if they go to seek knowledge, to learn, to become some professionals, of course, eventually they have to use their profession. But as you said, within the limits of Islam, of what God has prescribed for us.
Jazakallah Sanazah. Thank you for this insightful discussion. And this is the critical distinction that you guys have made. Zahid Saab, I just want to carry this discussion on a little bit further and build on it. Is that a lot of young people struggle because of their traditional customs from their parents' homelands, and they get mixed up with actual Islamic teachings. So, how does the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat or the community help disentangle pure Islam from what is being inherited from the culture, which might be something that is against Islam? So, how do they make that balance? And how do we find that guidance in our community?
Jazakallah. This is again a blessing of Allah the Almighty that we are born in the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. There are many things, unfortunately, that people present as religion that are merely customs and are not rooted in Islamic teachings, whether in the Holy Quran or through the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Prophet Sallallahu when he presented his message, he also liberated people from these false customs that they had adopted and termed as religion. So, in many of those things, he brought us again back towards what does the Holy Quran say and what is the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is what we find that the Ahmadi Muslim Jamaat, especially through the teachings of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and through Khulafa, have highlighted this distinction that though there are certain cultural norms which are beneficial, which are in line with Islamic teachings, but this does not mean that all the cultures and all the norms that we grew up with in certain cultures are part of the are in line with the Islamic teachings. For example, there are many unfortunate. We talked about inheritance. People say, they marry their daughter and they don't give her anything that was part of the inheritance of the father. That is not what Islam teaches. They, sort of disown her, that she's married outside the family and the wealth of the family cannot go outside the family. Or they insist on marrying within the family, like cousin marriage. Though Islam allows it, it is not compulsory to marry within the family. And there are many such things, like, for example, when we look at wedding customs, we can look at that, and especially in South Asia, there are big celebrations, sometimes number of days and number of festives or events are created around the wedding which are not part of the Islamic teachings. That is why sometimes when people belonging to outside of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, when they are invited as guests because maybe they are family friends of the people who are having this wedding in their family, when they invite people from outside the family, outside the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, they feel that as if this is some sort of perhaps a sorrowful event or something like that. Everybody sitting quietly there. There is no music, there is no dancing, there is no alcohol. There's no what they call enjoyment or joy. They don't see that. But this is how Islam sort of strips away the unnecessary things and makes it that yes, it is a occasion of joy, but this does not mean that you go, spend maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on gifts and things like that, or celebrate it in a way where you're promoting something which is against the teachings of Islam. Like Islam does not promote dancing, it does not promote mixed gatherings. Unfortunately, many of these gatherings, they do not cater to what the principal Islamic teachings are, and that leads to having ill consequences or unintended consequences, which later on haunt those people. So, the Khulafa, for example, they continue to highlight the education. Sometimes, in certain cultures, they have different standards for the boys and they have different standards for women. For example, I remember this discussion that how come men have all the freedom to go to different places, to uh, go to attend different events, and they say, oh, it's not, oh, we are men, we can go there. But Khulafa have very clearly highlighted that the same sort of restrictions apply to them. That though they can, but does not mean that they should just walk into these sort of events or these sort of places. That is not the way. And they have said that yes, for example, then there was a time where the women were restricted. The Prophet ﷺ has talked about this, that they are not to be made like a prisoner in their own homes. They are allowed to go outside. They are allowed to move around and pursue careers, pursue education, and all those kind of things. They are open to them. And given the example of Hazrat Khadija Raziyallahu anha, who was a business lady, she managed her own business as well. So these sort of restrictions come from cultures. What will somebody will say? What would so and so would say if our daughter was outside? If our daughter was this? Khulafa have very clearly, and the Prophet ﷺ have very clearly discouraged this sort of line of thinking and line of upbringing of the children. So this is again a blessing of Khilafat, a blessing of the Prophet ﷺ and Jamaat Ahmadiyya, that we try to follow in the line of the Prophet ﷺ, the teaching of Islam and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ.
Jazakallah Hassan Jaza. Musa Sahib, I'll move towards you next, and then I want to talk a little bit about the intellectual side of things. That we live in an age which is dominated by scientific inquiry, atheism, and modern philosophy. So, many traditional religious frameworks, they fall back on blind faith, meaning that just believe because such and such scholar said such and such thing. We should just quietly believe it. But how does the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, or how does our presentation of Islam give young Western Muslims the intellectual tools to address these modern objections?
Let me read first a quote from the current Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat that relates to this answer to this question, in which he actually said, "Today the world is looking in the direction of our Jamaat in order to see the true teachings of Islam." He says that this is something I see myself during my various tours abroad. Hence, we must prove to the world that our words are not hollow. Rather, we must prove we are living our lives as true ambassadors of peace and beacons of the true teachings of Islam. He says that no Ahmadi Muslim ever needs to become victim to any form of inferiority complex, because we have reason, logic, evidence, and above all, the true on our side. The truth is on our side. He says, in conclusion, I say once again that you must all seek to build. This is what he was addressing his own people, the Ahmadi Muslims. He says that I say once again that you must all seek to build your personal relationship with Allah and always seek to attain His nearness. And then he prayed for Ahmadis in this regard. So now, coming back to your question, that people do look at Ahmadi Muslims nowadays, especially when even Muslims, Christians, other religions, when they study their own religion, they find something that is odd to them. For example, those who go to universities and they study science and different topics and different subjects, and then they study their own religion, they see that there's something that's not really right. There is something that's not really compatible between the both, knowledge or science and religion. They see, for example, that Jesus has stories that do not align with the life we're living, do not align with the nature we see in our own eyes. Likewise, even Muslims who are not Ahmadis, they also have some stories in Islam, such as the Holy Prophet ﷺ flying to the sky and going to Jerusalem within seconds and so on. All of this contradicts the science. We do not say that religion comes under the science, but we do say that religion has an explanation to the science. Religion does not go against the science. So all these things, when we look at those atheists and other people, they speak proudly of their beliefs and their understandings and their ideas and their theories. If we as Muslims, specifically as Ahmadi Muslims who always have logic, as beloved Huzur said, we have logic, we have evidence, we have explanation to everything. All we need is just to read. And at the end, he did mention that the absolute solution to everything. He said, attain nearness of God. If we establish this and we read more and more about our religion, and we expand our knowledge in terms of listening to speeches. This is why we hold Jalsa Salanas, we hold different events, and we also encourage our own people to keep reading the books. Through that, we will see that religion does not go against science. It does not go against the knowledge that you're trying to seek. Once we build that, then we will have some confidence. Otherwise, if we keep looking at those atheists and other people who have fake confidence, I would call it, because eventually if you go deeper into their studies, their own ulama make fun of their teachings, their own scholars, their own philosophers. For example, when Rabbi Sahib in the beginning spoke about alcohol, in the beginning they used to say that drinking some alcohol is good for you for this reason, and then later on they say, oh, never mind, even a little bit of alcohol is bad for you. Oh, welcome to Islam, we tell them. Likewise, when speaking about pork, in the beginning they will tell you, their philosophers will tell you, oh, nothing happens to you, this is good for you. And then later on, their doctors say this is very bad for you. So we tell them, welcome to Islam. You keep going here and there, and we say, welcome to Islam, in a sense that we told you from the beginning that Islam does align with what your nature requires. Therefore, come to Islam. And we as Ahmadi Muslims, we do present the solutions for this. If a Muslim who is not Ahmadi at this time in age, he goes to speak about Islam and someone comes up, a Christian comes up, and he tells him, okay, you're a Muslim, but you believe that Jesus is alive. Jesus went up to the heaven. Can you explain this to me scientifically, religiously, logically? He cannot. He will tell him things from the Quran. He would tell him, for example, look at the Quran. What does the Quran say? The Quran says that the disbelievers asked Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that go up to the heaven and bring us a sign. What was his answer? His answer was, I am a human being. How do you want me to go up to the heaven? But yet you say that Jesus went up to the heaven. So is there a contradiction in the Quran and your teachings, or there's something wrong? If you come to Ahmadi Muslims, to the Ahmadiyya, it presents to you the correct solution. the correct answers in this regard. And likewise, the teachings, for example, that Prophet David alayhi salam, he used to speak to birds, or Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, he used to speak to birds. Even though you come to the Quran, it says, عُلِّمْنَا مَنْطِقَ الطَّيْرِ, we have been taught the language of birds. And then the verse after it says what? قَالَتْ نَمْلَةٌ, the ant said. What is the connection between birds and ants? He's saying, I have learned the language of birds. And the verse after it says, oh, I started speaking with the ants. What's the connection? So these are the misunderstandings that even non-Ahmadi Muslim ulama have about the Holy Quran, and they do need to find the right solution for it. Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, Noah, he lived for 950 years. No, he never lived like that. His teachings continued that long. The people of cave, the Ahlul Kahf, they say that those people after Jesus passed away, or after he left Palestine, they lived persecuted for 309 years. They tell you they lived for 309 years being persecuted. No, if I say right now, this isn't normal things that normal conversation we have, or terminologies that we use, or idioms that we use, we accept it for ourselves, but when God says it, we don't want to accept it. For example, if I tell you the Palestinians have been persecuted for the last 200 years, this does not mean that the Palestinians have been living for 200 years. It's generation after generation. So these are the misunderstandings that lead this is some of the misunderstandings that lead to the inferiority complex that some Muslims have, and they do not feel confident enough to answer non-Muslims in a conversation that arises about these topics.
No, Jazakallah Sanjay. I guess it's safe to say that this confidence only comes when when you're equipped with the intellectual discussions and the intellectual points. And in today's day and time, the promised Messiah والسلام, and the Khulafa of Ahmadiyyat have rationally explained everything that Islam teaches us. And this confidence will only come when we understand and when we read and we digest the material that is already provided to us. Jazakallah Musa Sahab for that elaborate
That
answer.
reminds me, we're talking about the answers and what the benefit of Jamaat is, or the teaching of Ahmadiyya. The Prophet ﷺ, his very first works, like Brahim Ahmadiyya, defense of the Holy Quran and proving the existence of God, is a testament that any person, whether he's atheist or who doubts the existence of God, that book is sufficient to eliminate, because the proofs are from the Holy Quran. It's proving the truth of the Holy Quran as well. And you will find that those who are even the opponents of Ahmadiyyat will admit that people who read it, they will themselves narrate the accounts of their elders that he was moving away from Islam. And the books of the Prophet ﷺ, especially Ibrahim Ahmadiyya, brought him back towards God. Even recently, there's a well-known advocate of Pakistan background who was an atheist. And he read the books of the Prophet ﷺ, specifically Ibrahim Ahmadiyya, and he says that he believes in God because he read the works of the Prophet ﷺ. Whether he joined Ahmadiyyat or not is not the point that I'm making. But if you want to find God, if you want to have the proofs of the existence of God, then the works of the Prophet ﷺ are fundamental for them to understand the arguments of the atheists and how to rebut them.
I'll just add a small incident that recently happened with me as well. When I was speaking to someone, I met someone, and he mentioned to me, after I met him after a very long time, he told me, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in God. So I immediately asked him, okay, if I steal your house right now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? He said, of course it's a bad thing. I said, where did you get this from? Who said that this is a bad thing? Where does this perception come from, or this understanding comes from? That stealing, fornication, all the bad things, all kinds of evil that happens, where does it, or the good things, like the differentiating between the two, where do you get it from? There's no answer. Atheists go about telling you, oh, this is how we get it, this is how we understand it. There was no God, there was this, there was that. But they have no true answer to this question. That where do you get your moral um, behavior from? Like where's the where do you draw the line? That this act, some people say, okay, whatever act you do that makes you feel good, that's where it comes from, just from your nature. So you tell them that, okay, there's a man and there's a woman, they're both married, but they go to other people and they sleep together, and they're both happy, it makes them feel good. It's betrayal, it's also fornication, but it makes both of them feel good together. So is this fine? And he will tell you it's fine. And then you tell him, if it happens with one of your family members, if it's fine, then they pause. So they have no true solutions. This is the fake confidence that I was speaking about.
No, Jazakallah, that's very fundamental. In order to have this confidence, you need to have the right equipment and the right tools, and that, by the grace of Allah Ta'ala, is already provided to us, and that's available for anyone who needs it. And in order to get your confidence, we must get up and we must educate ourselves in the West here in this society. I would like to just, for the viewers, Jazakallah, thank you so much for tuning in, chiming in, sending us your messages. If you do have any questions, please send them in. We will address your questions as well. We do have our own questions prepared, our own discussion, but it'll be more fruitful if you have your own involvement in the program. Again, please send us your questions, and thank you so much for sending in your messages. We are seeing them, and we are also observing your involvement in the program today. Zahid Saab, I would like to move this next discussion away from the intellectual arguments, which we've just discussed, towards more of a spiritual confidence. That, a religion or your spirituality without any sense of peace can be cold. So in our Jamaat, in our community, our central feature that we have is something that's called Khilafat, which is the caliphate or a spiritual leadership. How does living under a single spiritual guide anchor us Muslims that are living in the West?
Right, Jazakallah. And this is again a unique feature of Jamaat Ahmadiyya, that Khilafat unites us throughout the world. And no other Jamaat can claim to have this, because they are not united under one single leadership throughout the world. Yes, they call themselves Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat and any other name, but from country to country, from region to region, they are divided, not united the way the Ahmadiyya unites its followers. And that is again a beauty, that no matter where I go, I will understand that there is a system in place, that how the Ahmadiyya Jamaat operates. We realize that there is at every mosque, at every center, in every Jamaat, there will be a person who is called the president or the Sadr, and he's the main figurehead. And they will be following the same guidance of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. When the UK Jalsa will come around, they will also be planning to tune in to listen to Hazur's addresses. They will also have such events in their own locality, in their own countries as well. We will also realize that there is something called Atfalul Ahmadiyya and Khudamul Ahmadiyya that exists in that country, and members of a certain age group or of gender will have their own certain programs that will be taking place for the betterment of their moral training. And then we will be carrying out different activities to spread the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat. We will also be working on charitable actions to benefit the country in the best manner possible, up to our extent. Whatever means are available to us, we will be utilizing them. For example, in Canada, we have the blood donations, we have the Feed the Hungry programs, we have our own food banks as well that operate in Canada. On top of that, we can conduct number of walks throughout the country to benefit the local charities. And that is just a number of things that I've mentioned as an institution that we carry out. On an individual level, Ahmadis of all walks of life volunteer their times for the betterment of the country. in their own local places, they give their time to different charitable organizations or of other institutions. And this something that is something that is done throughout the world under the leadership of Khilafat. The other aspects we can see is the benefit of the guidance, the clarity. As you see that every so often there's a sort of a clamor in the society of certain or such and such people from different walks of life, their rights are being ignored, and all of a sudden you will find that every single thing is geared towards that aspect without thinking that whether this is something that we even need to uh, be mindful of or we need to promote. But people blindly follow such trends. If you go back to the early history of Facebook, for example, when it came out, it was sort of like a revolutionary. Oh, it connects people, uh, and people can do this, do that, and people blindly posting pictures of their families, of their trips, their locations, everything people were sharing. And what was the result? The result was that certain aspects or certain people in the society, the criminal minded people, they took benefit of that. They would forge complete identities of the people and would start adopting their names. They would have their pictures, they would run the accounts themselves, and you will get a message: I'm stuck somewhere in Europe, somewhere in Africa, my passport is gone, my credit cards are gone, and I have nothing. Can you send me money? Or they will create new identities in your name. They have all the history. They will write to the bank, I have lost my credit cards, can you send me replacement cards at this address? And there goes your credit history. They have taken thousands of dollars of loan in your name, and now you are the one who's in the debt. So this was some of the harms. And then people getting blackmailed. Now with the coming of AI, you can make people do anything. You can make people say anything. You can put anybody's face on something and make them say something. And you know, if your AI is good enough, if your the boundaries or the limits you have set are good enough, you can make people do whatever you want, and you can blackmail people as well using those means. So these are the harms that the Khilafat warned us at the very beginning, that observe the parda, especially the ladies, observe the parda. Men, there's no need for you to unnecessarily start sharing everything online. And even recently, Hazur continues to guide us, continues to warn us that these are trends. These are the things that we need to be mindful of. There's so much focus on the LGBTQ society and their rights and so on and so forth. Hazur has warned us that these are the things that are harmful. We need to not hide from them, but we need to educate our children. We need to educate them about these things, that they understand what is right and what is wrong. And there's no need to be like sort of ashamed to discuss these kind of things with your children. And that is where the society, wants to educate it themselves, and they will educate them in a manner which is totally un-Islamic. So Khilafat has been guiding us, and that is the beauty, that it is not on the whims of the society, on the whims of the way the wind is going today, we'll just go that way. That is not the case. And that is again is something which is a benefit of Islam, and benefit and very beneficial to all the Ahmadis throughout the world.
If I may add one more point. Yeah,
Yes,
so
please.
yeah, as Murabbi Sahib was mentioning, the beauty of the guidance of Khilafat, there's one more aspect to it. I mean, he already mentioned it, but I wanted to put more emphasis on it, is that we have every Friday sermon that the beloved Huzur, the Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we are all in the whole world connected under him, united under him. He studies the cases, the conditions, the problems of the whole world, political and and all types of issues that we have. People write to him from all walks of life, as Murabbi Sahib mentioned, and then he analyzes all the issues and based on his own spiritual experience with God. He presents solutions to us in every Friday sermon, sometimes through giving examples, sometimes directly addressing the different topics. For example, I wanted to give one or two examples in which he actually directly addressed this specific topic that we're speaking about. In one of the Friday sermons, Huzuri Anwar mentioned that Umuman, I'll read the Urdu because I couldn't find the English, and then I can summarize it as well. He says, अमूमन आम दुनियादार को मुसलमानों के बारे में यही तस्वर है कि मुसलमानों में नमाज वही पढ़ते हैं जो शिद्दत पसंद है। जब ये लोग देखते हैं कि ये तफरीह करने वाले बच्चे और बड़े नमाज पढ़ रहे हैं और लिबास भी उनके यहाँ के लोगों के लिबास के मुताबिक पहने हुए हैं, लेकिन इबादत में इन्हिमाक है, तो ज़रूर तवज्जो पैदा होती है। जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि कई ऐसे हैं जो अपने तजुर्बात बयान करते हैं कि किस तरह नमाज की वजह से बाज़ गैरों की उनकी तरफ तवज्जो पैदा हुई और यूँ तबलीग के रास्ते खुले। बस किसी किस्म के दिस इज़ द मेन पॉइंट हियर, बस किसी किस्म के एहसास कमतरी में हमें मुब्तला नहीं होना चाहिए, ना बच्चों को ना बड़ों को। हमारा दावा है कि दुनिया में दीनी और रूहानी इनकलाब हमने पैदा करना है, तो ये दीनी और रूहानी इनकलाब वही लोग पैदा कर सकते हैं जो हर किस्म के एहसास कमतरी से आज़ाद हूँ और अपने अंदर सबसे पहली दीनी और रूहानी इनकलाब पैदा करने वाले हूँ। और ये दीनी और रूहानी इनकलाब बग़ैर इबादत का हक़ अदा किए पैदा नहीं हो सकता, और इबादत के हक़ के लिए सबसे अहम और ज़रूरी चीज़ नमाज है। So this is one example in which the Khalifa of the time, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Ayyadallah bin Nasr al-Aziz, may Allah be his helper, he was speaking specifically about how we should increase the relationship or strengthen the relationship between us and God through the daily prayers. And this, he said, a believer should always keep this in mind, that he has to be close to God, he has to be praying. He said that if you, whenever you gather together and you pray, especially even if a family event happens, on time you decide to pray, other people see you, they get inspired by you. Some people say that, look, this person is just dressed like us, he speaks like us, he sits with us, he jokes with us, and he's praying on time, he's focused on his worship. Why can't we be like him? He said this becomes a means of tabligh for other people, tarbiyat for some people. And he said, but this cannot happen if you have ihsas kamtari. If you have this inferiority complex, inferiority feeling within you, it cannot happen. You have to build yourself properly, connect yourself with God, pray namaz on time. Only then you'll be able to bring about revolution in the world. Otherwise, spiritual and physical. Otherwise, we cannot be those people. I wanted to give another example in which he was also guiding the Ahmadis about this topic. He said, बस किसी बुराई के मुकाबले पर खड़ा होने के लिए, दिल में जुर्रत पैदा करने के लिए, अल्लाह ताला की मदद हासिल करने के लिए अल्लाह ताला का जिक्र करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. In order for you to build this confidence, to build this bravery within yourself, you must focus on remembrance of Allah. You must be close to Allah. He says शैतान भी इंसान का बहुत बड़ा दुश्मन है. That Satan is a big enemy of human beings. Said आज की दुनिया में दजल के मुख्तलिफ तरीके हैं. दजल मुख्तलिफ किस्म की फ़ौजों के साथ हमला आवर हो रहा है, और हमारी तरक्की पजीर या कम तरक्की याफ्ता मुल्कों के लोग उन तरक्की याफ्ता मुल्कों में आकर भी और अपने मुल्क में भी उनके हमलों की वजह से उनके ज़ेर असर आ जाते हैं, और इस नाम निहाद सिविलाइज्ड सोसाइटी की बुराइयां फ़ौरन इख्तियार करना शुरू कर देते हैं. बस उनके हमलों से बचने के लिए और हर किस्म के कॉम्प्लेक्स से, एहसास कमतरी से अपने आप को आज़ाद रखने के लिए अल्लाह ताला का ज़िक्र इंतहाई ज़रूरी है. इससे दिलों में जुर्रत पैदा होगी, पाक तब्दीली पैदा होगी. So he also mentioned a quote from the Prophet Muhammad, but I'll give the summary of this. He basically was speaking in another Friday sermon, speaking about how the force of the Dajjal, this fitna, this trial that we're living in this day and age, is that when people come to these countries so called civilized country. The reason why he says so-called civilized countries, because they present to you as if they are the most civilized. They have brought about the revolution and the civilization for all mankind. This is why he called it Nam Nihad, which is so-called civilized society. People who come and live with them and they are not strong in their own religion, their own beliefs, they fall into this trap and they end up doing what they do because they consider this as this is what civilization is. Whereas the true civilization, as we said in the beginning of this program, Islam does not uh, um, confine you to a specific culture. It says take all good things from all cultures, all societies, but always make sure that they do not conflict with the teachings of Islam. This is Islam. This is what we should be following. This is why we always try to listen to the Friday sermons of beloved Huzur, because he does make us aware of these. Because sometimes unknowingly you end up following and falling into these traps. And then you have the Khilafat. The beauty of the guidance of Khilafat is that it takes us out of this darkness and brings us back to light.
Jazakallah Nizam Musa Saab. Thank you for that detailed and inspiring words of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, our Khalifa, current Khalifa, who guides us regularly. I want to wrap up today's episode. We are coming to the end. And I wanted to just finish maybe with this question that, Zahid Saab, if you could give a youth, a 16-year-old Ahmadi Muslim struggling with their identity, whether they're in high school or even in university, any one piece of advice, what would it be?
This is a very good question and a very difficult question to answer because nowadays 16-year-olds they don't tend to listen. Whatever advice you may give, it may be ignored. But if somebody is listening, I would advise them in the words of the Holy Quran that wa'tasimu bihablillah, that hold on to the rope of Allah. Now, rope of Allah may mean different things. It could be the Holy Quran, it could be the Khalifatul Masih, it could be the message of Islam, different interpretations according to different people and different contexts. But turning to Islam, and the thing is that at that age of 16, 17, when you are in high school, your priority is not really religion. Unfortunately, there are many things. For some, yes, they are in tune with the teaching of Islam, but there are many who are just going day to day, cruising at a cruising, you can say, speed, or a cruising aptitude and a way of life where they just go to school, they wake up in the morning, they get ready, they go to school, they come back. If they are some athletes or they have some extracurricular activities, they might do that for a couple of hours, watch some TV, have some dinner, and go to sleep. Spend some time on the phone, go to sleep 10, 11 o'clock, and then this cycle goes on. Friday night comes along, you may stay awake longer, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, and then next day you wake up, instead of waking up regular time, which is maybe 8 o'clock, you wake up 10, 11 o'clock, you watch some TV, you go out with your friends, go to the mall or something, and really there is no, unfortunately, maybe segment or no space for God or religion. So if you can make time for, when I say wa'tasimu bihablillah, if you can make time for God, and at the minimum, read your daily prayers and read some of Holy Quran, you will find a great change in yourself. That will regulate your life. So that would be my message. Muslim wants to add something, I'm sure. He always has some good advice. I will listen to that.
No, if I get the same question, then I would also say that for all Muslim youth, not just Ahmadis, that your identity is not cheap. Your identity is not for sale. Do not go outside in the markets and try to choose your own identity. You have the most precious, the most valuable thing in the whole world. Do not go outside and sell your own identity. Whatever you see on the screens, on social media, outside in your schools, you see haircut styles, you see certain actors, certain famous players, and you want to become like them all of a sudden. You forget what you have. You have the Quran, you have Islam, you have the teachings of Islam. That is your identity if you just study it, if you go deep into it. Your identity is not for sale. Do not go sell it. You have the most valuable thing. Do not make it cheap. That's it.
No, Jazakallah. Thank you both so much. And Zayed Saab, it's very beautiful you mentioned Wa'tasimu bihablillah. And we live in a society of niches. People like to, pick a different certain thing and stick with it. And it's very easy for them to do. And this is something I also share with youth is that, studying Islam is like studying a whole tree, which is very big and very fruitful. And it could be overwhelming. So pick a niche. If you like history, find the history of Islam. If you like the Quran, read the Quran. If you like hadith, read a hadith. If you like fiqh, read the fiqh. Try to go to different niches of Islam and build your relationship with Allah Ta'ala, and you can help educate yourself and even build that confidence that we do need as Muslims. So this is an easy route maybe to pick a branch instead of trying to study the whole tree all at once and being overwhelmed. Again, Jazakallah to our viewers who stayed with us throughout the episode today. Jazakallah to both of you, Zahid Abid Sahib and Musli Shambur Sahib, for sharing your insights today. And leave us with your thoughts, leave us with your questions and comments in the section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow Ask Islam on the social media platforms where you are joining us today. Until next time, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all.
Thank you.